except not when they're stacked, when there's, artistry is involved. Or for instance, in this case, where's the field that's being cleared? They occupy the field, so that's not, field clearing is not what's going on. Now, I said I would get close to Floyd County, and this is about a half-mile away, right off the Franklin Pike, on the Franklin County side, an area that the owners call Twin Peaks. Tom Klacka, who's the archaeologist at the State Preservation Office, has visited this site and documented these cairns also. And I just have a few images, but one interesting thing about this site is the cairns are sometimes, on the left case, topped with white quartz. On the right, the white quartz and the gray fieldstone is sort of interleaved. You see this, and I can think of examples in Tennessee and Vermont, where the cairns have a topping of white quartz. White quartz, very important, or quartz in general, to shamanistic practice. I don't know if you know this, and I regret I didn't bring it, but if you have quartz and you strike it together or rub it together, it produces light, triboluminescence. The physics are kind of obscure what's really going on, but it's a cool stone that can produce sort of little lightning flashes of light. And why are these structures where they are? Well, there's this huge rock outcrop, and one section of it, shown there on the right, has somewhat the appearance of a turtle head emerging from the shell. And I didn't take the photo on the right, so I'm not sure what's going on there at the center of the head, but it looks like an eye, like maybe some sort of lichen that's grown away. And my first thought is, well, that's an interesting coincidence, but then it occurred to me, lichen grows for hundreds of years. So maybe that eye-like appearance has been there for hundreds of years to sort of make that tortoise even more prominent. And so I've mentioned the thunderbirds, the serpent monsters, but also in many Native American beliefs is the primordial turtle on which the earth was created. And in one tale among the Iroquois of New York and Ottawa, or Ontario, there's references to the sky woman, the first woman, the first person, drifting down from heaven. In one story, she has chased her dog, has gone down a hole from heaven, and she goes down a hole and then drifts down into our lower world. And the primordial turtle and the other sea creatures see her heading towards the ocean, and they glide under her, and she lands on the tortoise, and then Earth is created, North America is created. This is an outcrop in Volunton, Connecticut, right near the Rhode Island boundary, which has a turtle-like form. And on it has been placed these two stones, one like a head and one like a body. So I think this is a very literal representation of that primordial turtle sky woman story. And then this is my closing slide, but we can go into questions, but it has some various sources. At the top is the actual USGS site that has the LiDAR. And I've looked a little bit, like Buffalo Mountain. I've searched it in LiDAR to see if there are any of these structures. And sometimes the structures don't pan out. I will hike into them, and they are something else. They're not Native American. But oftentimes it's the first clue that something's going on. And then a great book, sort of a series of essays on the structures recently come out from Arizona Press. I have a presentation online that tracks these structures from Pennsylvania out to New Mexico. I wanted to see, at one point in my research, whether there was a continuum of these forms. And they go right across the country, wherever there's stone, and usually wherever there's a hill or elevation, you will often find these structures. And at the bottom, the question of dating these is really difficult because if they're not wood, for instance, you can't carbon date them. But there's a technique called optically stimulated luminescence where you can determine how long a surface under a stone or underground has been hidden from sunlight. And then you can measure how it reacts to the reintroduction of light and figure out a rough time period when it's constructed. And this article by Feathers and Muller is about the dating of a structure in Pennsylvania where the date they came up to was 500 or so BC. So contemporaries with the Parthenon.
Wow.
So, questions? Yeah.
I'm actually from Buckingham County, near the Albemarle, Nelson, Tri-County border. How far east do these structures go from Albemarle and Nelson?
Well, that's a great question, because John Smith was seeing something very much like them in eastern Virginia. And then John Lederer, who was a German scholar who was hired by Governor Berkeley around 1670 to explore westward from the site of Richmond.
Yeah.
One of his first stops was at a Monacan village somewhere on the James River, where they take him to see a pile of stones. And they tell him that the number of stones in that pile are the number of people in the Monacan nation.
Oh, wow.
So you can't really explain a serpent monster that way, no. But it's one take on the rich traditions that 300 years ago you would hear perhaps from a Native American.
Were these destinations, or were they near settled areas?
Oh, that's another fantastic question. House Mountain in central Rockbridge County is a freestanding mesa. It's separate from the mountains around it, and there are hundreds, perhaps thousands of these structures on the sides of House Mountain. So anyone who was building them was going to the mountain. They weren't passing through. They were going up high to build the structures. So that's one example. On the border of Rockbridge and Bedford County, right on the Blue Ridge Parkway, is a site called Petty's Gap. It's a gap where there are structures, but there they may have been passing over the gap. It's the best way to get around the James River Gorge on the south side of the river. So there it may have been, and that's very similar to a practice in Peru, where